Fantastic. Well, welcome everyone to another very special live episode of From the Collection. Today, we are going to be sharing with you two objects from the Chapman Museum's collection, and you guys will have a chance to make observations, ask questions, and maybe guess what these objects are or what they were used for. So my name is Becca. I'm the program and outreach coordinator here at the Chapman. And basically, that means it's my job to come up with all the programs that people attend at the museum, and I get to teach people about history.
And my name is Maureen, and I'm the curator here at the Chapman. And I take care of the exhibits for the museum, and I take care of all of the objects that the museum owns.
Nice. And today we are happy to welcome back, it's been a little while, Glen, our resident bat in the attic. Welcome, Glen. We're glad you can make it today. We know daytime events are not always your favorite.
Yeah, well, the topic of today's episode sounded interesting, so I thought I'd join. Won't get used to it though.
All right. Jeez. Well, maybe you want to tell everyone what the topic of today's episode is. Your outfit might give some clues. Ah,
Sports. Today's episode is about sports. Sorry, I cut you off.
yeah, no, that's
Too
okay. It is
excited.
about sports. Looking good. All right, so yep, today's objects that we're sharing with you today are going to relate to sports in the past. And we have a lot to get to this afternoon, so we are going to get started. Maureen, I'm going to share our screen, and would you like to talk a little bit about the objects here at the museum?
Sure. So the Chapman Museum has a lot of objects that are from the past. We store these items in our collection and archive spaces. And many of these items are a primary source. So, a primary source is an object that was used or created by someone in the past. Primary sources can be letters, photographs, artifacts, clothing, speeches, and more.
Fantastic. Now, during today's program, we're going to be sharing with you two different objects, just like I said, and they are both primary sources. So we are going to learn what period in history each of these objects came from, what the object was used for, as well as any other interesting information that we have on the object. Now, throughout the program, I am going to be asking you questions. So if you would like to participate and answer those questions, you've got a couple of different options. You can raise your hand virtually. There's a little raise your hand button on the side, or you can type your responses in the chat and I can read them aloud. Now, it is more fun if you participate. But if you'd rather just sit back and watch, you can do that as well. Now, to get our brains working, I do have my first question for you. And that is, what types of sports do you like? All right. So maybe you like to watch sports on TV or listen to sports, on the radio as your parents are driving or as you're driving. Or maybe you play on a sports team. So think about your answer for a moment. And then when you're ready, you can choose to raise your hand or type your response in the chat. So like I said, I'll give you just a second to think that through. Okay, we're good. Now, Glen, how about you? Do you like sports?
Oh yeah, baseball's my favorite. Can you guess why?
No, not sure why.
Because I'm a baseball bat.
All right, that's a good one. That's a good one. These jokes are terrible. He really has to get away from Sophers. He's rubbing off on him.
He really is.
I heard that.
All right. Well, moving on. That was a good joke, Glenn. All right, now before we look at any object, or at least before we look at our first object, I want to give you some historical context. Now, historical context is like background information. So it's going to help you better understand what was going on in history at the time this object was being used. Now, our first object comes from, there it is, the turn of the century. So a century is 100-year period. And sometimes historians use the phrase turn of the century to refer to the years just before and just after the year 1900. And we call those 100 years between 1900 and the year 2000 as the 20th century. That's what historians refer to it as. Now, some historians refer to the 20th century as the American century. And that's because America was becoming one of the leading powers in the world during this time. And we also see the beginnings of this during the 20th century. We also see new inventions and new ideas. And we also see America expanding both in size and in population. So here is a map on our screen of what the country looked like in the year 1900. So at that time, there were 45 states, but Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Alaska, and Hawaii, they were not considered states yet. They were considered territories. So the land was owned by the United States, but these areas weren't quite states yet. You'll also notice on our map that Oklahoma kind of has this weird line drawn down somewhat the middle of it. And it's marked with INDTERR. And what that stands for is Indian Territory. And basically, what this was is that it was land that was set aside by the US government to be used by Native Americans who had been forced to relocate there from their homes in the Southwest, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, those kind of areas. And there were five main Native American tribes who lived in what is referred to as Indian Territory. And they were the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the Creek, and the Seminole. Now, next to the map, we have a picture of a gentleman over here. Does anyone think they know who this might be? Glenn, you think you know?
Uh, Herbert Hoover.
Herbert Hoover. No, not Herbert
No, I
Hoover.
wasn't.
Not Herbert
I
Hoover.
was close.
Yeah, it's more or less. Herbert Hoover is a president, and this gentleman on our screen is also a president. But this is Teddy Roosevelt. You heard about him, Glenn?
Oh yeah, one of
That's
the national parks.
Hey, good job. We're going to get into that in just a bit. Absolutely. So this is
Yeah, go on.
President Theodore or Teddy Roosevelt, and he was president of the United States from 1901 to 1909. And he was from New York City originally, so he's a New Yorker. And he, if you can tell in the picture, he is a big man, and he has a very big personality to match. And we're going to talk about why that is in just a second. So Roosevelt was passionate about many things, and one of those passions was the environment. So Roosevelt loved being outside, and as a young boy, he had collected tadpoles. So he'd gone out to like creeks and streams and collected tadpoles, and he had also sketched birds. As an adult, he had gone out west and he had worked as a cattle rancher. And during this time, Roosevelt starts to become worried about the destruction of the wilderness. And so what he does is he pushes for conservation or the protection of natural resources like streams, rivers, mountains, and more. Now, as president, which is what this picture comes from, this is when he was president, he would go out west and he would visit the Grand Canyon in Arizona and Yosemite Valley in California. And it's during these trips that he realizes that the United States has to pass laws that are going to protect natural resources. And so that's what he does. He pushes Congress to pass these laws. It's under his presidency that the U.S. Forest Preserve is started, basically. And what this organization does is conserve the nation's woodlands or trees. And he also set aside land to be used for national parks, just like you said, Glenn. Now, another passion of Roosevelt's was sports. He loved sports. His favorites included boxing, wrestling, hiking, and horseback riding. And he was happy anytime he could combine his love of nature with his love of sports. So, he also liked to skinny dip in the Potomac River. And the Potomac is a river, ooh, scandal. The Potomac is a river that flows through Washington, D.C., and he would skinny dip in it. In 1903, he has a tennis court built just outside the Oval Office as part of the White House. And our picture right here shows where the original White House tennis court was built. I don't believe it's in the same spot anymore. But what Roosevelt would do is that he would challenge his advisors, which are people who help him make decisions. He would challenge them to tennis matches. And so they would scoot out from the Oval Office where they were working and go out to the court and play a match. And he loved doing that. Now, kind of on a broader scale, the turn of the century brings a lot more people taking an interest in sports. Now, people had been playing games like soccer or basketball or baseball for decades before this. But at the turn of the century, sports begin to become more organized. And we see professional teams being created. The very first baseball World Series, which is played every year, that was held in 1903, and we have a picture on the side that shows that. We also see the start of the National Athletic Association, which is better known as the NCAA. They are the ones that run the March Madness basketball tournament every year. They get their start in 1906. Now, spectator sports, or sports where people are going to watch the event happen, like boxing or baseball or football, they also become very popular at the turn of the century. And people start purchasing tickets to go to these games or these meets or these matches. We also see the very first Olympics being held in the United States. Those were held in 1904 in the city of St. Louis, Missouri. Now, exercise through sports was also encouraged for both men and women at the turn of the century. And individual sports, or sports played by just one person or can be played by just one person, like golf, tennis, biking, or ice skating, they become very popular during the turn of the century as well. And we start to see the very first sports programs for young people start to be developed. And these were usually associated or linked with schools or local community centers. The YMCA, like in this picture, that would be a local community center. Smith College would be a college for women. And then we see this picture of these two women doing an individual sport of biking. So, with all that historical context, it is time for our first object reveal. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so I'm going to unshare my screen. Very good.
Oh, hey, you doing open heart surgery over there? What's with the gloves?
Well, Glenn, sometimes curators and museum staff wear gloves when they're handling objects because it protects the object from the oils and dirt that might be on our hands.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So here's our first object.
Oh, it's kind of a two for one.
I have two of them. I'm going to hold one up to the screen.
Nice. So as Maureen is showing you the object, I want you to think about size and shape, color, material that the object might be made from. And if and when you have a good observation, you can raise that hand or you can type it in the chat.
Remember, I have two.
Yeah, so there's two of them. Hmm.
Good idea.
Okay. Well, now that you've got a good look at that object, I want you to start to think, what could these objects be used for? Glenn, you got any idea what it could be used for?
Yeah, boating.
Boating. How so?
Well, just look at the shape.
Oh, oh, well, it does have kind of the curve of a boat. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
metal floats too.
This part goes in
Buoyant.
the water. Well, here, if we're talking about floating, I will tell you, this is solid metal.
Mm. I don't know if it'll
Metal's
float.
not float.
I don't think that this one's going to.
No.
Ooh.
Hmm. Okay. Well, are we ready for the reveal?
I'm ready for the reveal if everyone is.
You ready, Glenn?
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right. Well, these objects are ice skates.
Oh,
I know. These skates are made from steel, which is a very strong metal. And this is the blade here on the bottom. And that would have made contact with the ice to allow you to skate. Now, the front end of the skate is here, and the back end is here.
hmm.
And you probably couldn't see it, but there is an R and an L.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
I know they're very difficult to see.
Yeah, but it's engraved on the metal.
Right,
Cool.
right, and left.
But I gotta ask, how do you get the skate to stay on your foot?
That is a really good question, Glenn. Now, does anyone think they might know the answer? How are we going to get these skates to stay on our feet? Glenn, any thoughts?
Gorilla glue.
Oh, maybe. Maureen, how do you think they're going to stay on someone's foot?
Well, instead of Gorilla Glue,
Good
they would
idea.
have had it instead of having a special shoe or boot that they would have had to wear like we do now. You put on an ice skate and it has a boot attached. These skates would have actually attached directly to your own shoes.
Ah,
So some skates had leather straps that would go over and or buckles that would fasten around the wearer's shoes, while other skates like this one had little clamps on the toe and the heels, so you can see those clamps here,
oh,
these clamps.
okay.
And the user would set their foot into the top of the skate and adjust them so that they fit. These move a little bit, so you can adjust it for your shoe size. And then push the lever on the side, which is here.
Oh, okay.
And when this lever is pushed in, it's going to clamp in and lock on your shoe.
Wow, pretty cool.
Yeah, so you can see that movement here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very cool. All
Yeah.
right, well, I'm going to share our screen again because we have some pictures
Okay.
that relate to this. So give me 1 second and then you can continue on. All right.
So the company that made these ice skates, which Becca's going to show you in just a second,
Maybe.
was Peck and Snyder. They were based out of
There
New
we go.
York City,
There we
and
are.
and they sold a bunch of different sports equipment. So this particular skate is called an American club skate, and it would have been worn by either men or women. According to advertisements that we found, these skates would have sold for $7 a pair.
Wow.
Yeah, not too bad.
All right.
This economy. And I can't wait to meet who owned these skates. Maybe he can tell me where I can get $7 skates.
Well, Glenn, I wish we knew, but we don't know who owned the skates.
Yeah.
But what we can do is talk about ice skating at the turn of the century and its connection to our area. So, Becca, I'll let you take that away.
Sure, sounds good. Well, ice skating was very popular at the turn of the century, and that's because just about anyone can do it or could do it. All you needed was a pair of skates, and it didn't even have to be the ones we just showed you. It could be a different brand. And you needed a frozen pond or a stream or a lake, some sort of frozen water that you could skate on. And as long as you had those two things, you were good to go. Now, in our area, in the Lake George, Queensbury, Glens Falls area, ice skating was very popular during the winter. And as, well, Glenn, you hibernate maybe, but for the rest of us, we know that winters tend to be very cold, icy, and snowy up here. So this is perfect conditions for ice skating. So, as we were doing research for this episode, we came across a lot of newspaper articles that talked about the thickness of the ice on Lake George. And you want ice to be of a certain thickness so you don't fall through when you're ice skating. We also know that ice skating took place on Crandall Pond in Crandall Park. And we know this started in 1895 thanks to newspaper articles. Now, one article we found that was written a year later in 1896, it said that approximately 300 people were seen skating on Crandall Pond one afternoon in December. And you can still skate on Crandall Pond today, and we have a picture of some modern skaters down here. Now, up above it, these skaters are skating on the pond in 1929. That's a little later than when these skates would have been used, but it gives you an idea of what people, looked like as they were skating in the past. Now, can anyone, well, Glenn, I guess you could tell me, can you think of another sport that's played on ice skates?
Oh, I know. Full
Okay,
contact football.
sure. On ice skates. Wow, okay, haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Any other sports coming to mind?
Let's see. What are the major sports you got? Oh, you got oh, hockey.
Hey, there we go. You are so right. Hockey is another sport that is played on ice skates. Now, informal hockey games had been played for centuries before this. But at the turn of the century, it is a very popular sport, particularly for young boys. Hockey sticks and ice skates are very popular holiday gifts at this time. Now, in our area, the completion of the Civic Center in 1979, which you might know today as the Harding and Mazzotti Arena, its name just got changed. With the completion of this arena, it allowed professional hockey teams to start playing in Glens Falls. Now, the first hockey team to call the Civic Center home were the Adirondack Red Wings. And you can see their logo is up at the top of the screen. It's this little red arrow with a wing coming off of it. I shouldn't say arrow, wheel with a wing coming off of it. Now, the Red Wings were very successful. They would go on to win the Calder Cup, which is the championship trophy for the American Hockey League. They would go on to win that 4 times, which is pretty impressive. And for a time, their coach was a man named Bill Dineen. And he, Bill, was born in Canada. He had played for the NHL, the National Hockey League, for a couple of years. And then he would go on to become a coach, and he would coach the Adirondack Red Wings. And fun fact, the street in front of the city, whoops, I skipped ahead. The street in front of the Civic Center, that is called Bill Dineen Way in his honor. Now, today, the Adirondack Thunder are the team that call the Civic Center home, and you can go and watch their games and cheer them on. You've gone to games before, right?
I sure have.
Very cool. So it's kind of really fun and exciting that the tradition of hockey has continued to be played in our area from the turn of the century all the way to now. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing our PowerPoint for a second. There we go. And before we move on to our second object, do we have any questions about the ice skates or sports at the turn of the century? Glenn, you see anyone asking questions? All right. Well, Glenn, do you think you're going to take up ice skating now?
Well, I think I'll stick to the skis. Plus, I hibernate in the winter.
That's true.
That makes sense. I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. Yeah, probably a little safer. All
Mhm.
right. With that, we're going to move on to our next object. Now, I will say we do not have an exact year or date for our next object.
Why not?
Well, Glenn, when something's given to the museum, we do our best to learn as much as we can about it. But sometimes there just isn't a lot of information available. We believe our next object was used between the years 1928 and 1940, so we can narrow it down a bit. And that covers a time in U.S. history called the Great Depression. So,
Great Depression. What's so great about depression? Was everyone sad?
Well, you're not completely wrong, Glenn. The Great Depression was a very sad and scary time for millions of Americans. But what we're referring to when we use that term depression is an economic depression or an economic crisis. So economics or the economy relates to money and how the country is doing financially. And during the Great Depression, many people all over the world, not just in the United States, but we are going to focus on the US, many people lost their jobs and did not have a lot of money. So I'm going to share our PowerPoint again. One moment. Okay. There we go. And here we go. All right, so most historians say that the Great Depression started in the year 1929 and went until 1941. Now, during this time, businesses and banks closed, and unemployment, or when an adult does not have a job, that was very, very high. In 1933, at the height of the Great Depression, unemployment was at 25%. So that means 1 in 4 adults did not have a job during the Great Depression, and that's a lot of people. So during the Depression, it became very difficult for many families to pay rent, to buy groceries, or to make car payments. Lots of families struggled and had to save just about every single penny that came in. So there was not a lot of extra money for special toys or treats or sometimes even new clothes. So people kind of had to make do with what they had. Now, the president for most of the Great Depression was a man named Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Wait, hold on, back up. Thought you said the Roosevelt guy's name was Theodore. Now it's Franklin?
That is a very good point, Glenn. So they do have the same last name, but they are not the same person. They are, however, related. So Theodore and Franklin were fifth cousins. So they are cousins, but they're quite separated from each other. They're fifth cousins. And Franklin is actually inspired by Theodore to run for president. So here he is. This is our man, Franklin Roosevelt. Fun fact, he's also my favorite president. All right. So he is elected in 1932. And while he is campaigning, He is promising, or he promised the American people something called the New Deal. And this was a plan to make things better for the Americans who were really struggling during the Depression. And once he became president, Franklin started making new laws and passing programs that were put in place to help people. So his goal was to create jobs, to give money and support to people and families that needed it, and to help the country's economy, remember that's related to money, become strong again. Now, even in these dark times, people were looking to have fun and they wanted a way to kind of forget their troubles for a little bit. And one of the ways they did this was through sports. Now, while researching this episode, we found out that mini golf or miniature golf actually became really popular during the Great Depression. Glenn, you've ever played mini golf?
Love mini golf.
Oh, good,
Golf
good.
is my
Yeah, that's good to hear. Well, the reason mini golf became so popular during the Depression was because it was pretty cheap to play. A round of mini golf cost about 50 cents. Now, if you think about that in today's money, that's pretty cheap. And then compared to regular golf, which was much more expensive, mini golf could be played by just about anyone. It didn't require skill. You didn't have to have experience in golf. It was just about having fun and a little bit of luck. And just like today, it was also popular during the Depression for people to play games like football or soccer or basketball or baseball in the local park because playing in the park was free. But if you lived near or in a city with a professional baseball team, you might have been able to catch a baseball game in person. So, a ticket to sit in the stands of a baseball game cost about $1 in the 1930s. But if you couldn't go in person, you did have another option, and that was to listen to a baseball game on the radio. So we can see on the right-hand side of our screen, this is a radio. Glenn, you listen to the radio?
Can't stand it.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sore subject. Well, in the 1930s, instead of televisions or iPads or smartphones, the radio was kind of the centerpiece of entertainment. It was how people got their news. They might have listened to a speech from the president. It was how people got their entertainment. They could hear comedians telling jokes. They could also listen to a game in progress. So you could sit at home in your living room and listen to a baseball game and hear the plays and hear who was winning and all that. So, with all that in mind, it's time to go on to our second object. So, I'm going to stop sharing our screen and we are going to share our second object.
Our second object is on a mannequin. So we are going to move the camera here to the object. So you're going to miss Becca for a moment, but
Okay.
she'll be back.
Ooh.
So this is our second object. Can you see that, Glenn?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
see it. Here, I can shift it just a touch closer.
Okay, there we go. Perfect. So
It's got sleeves here.
buttons down the front.
Buttons down the
So
front.
as Maureen is showing off that object, again, take some time to think about the object's shape, size, color, materials it might have been made out of. And also see if you can read the words, particularly on the front, what that front says. All right. Take a moment, look that over.
So probably right away, you can tell that our object is a piece of clothing.
Mm-hmm.
But does anybody think that they could guess why somebody might wear this outfit?
Mm-hmm. Glenn, any thoughts?
Well, I'm only thinking, yeah, how's he supposed to play baseball without a head?
Well, it's just a mannequin, so we don't have to worry about it playing baseball, but
Good
you got something right. Baseball's involved, and
Mhm.
it is a baseball jersey and part of a uniform that would have been worn by a baseball player.
Cool.
And now this jersey is made out of wool as the
Ugh.
material, and the logo is on the front, and as you saw when I rotated it, the number is on the back. And those are made from red cloth as opposed to the light gray of the wool underneath.
Wool sounds pretty hot and itchy to be playing baseball in.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't have been the most comfortable, Glenn. Nowadays, baseball players wear uniforms made from polyester, which is much lighter, but in for much of the past, wool or flannel would have been used for uniforms.
Interesting. So I'm going to share my screen again. So we're going to lose the uniform for a little bit, but we will be back to it. Okay. And we're going to talk a little bit more. There we go.
Yeah, talk about some baseball players.
Yeah. All right. So here is our slide. So bear with me, everyone. There we go.
So some of the greatest baseball players in history played in the 1930s,
Wow.
and that includes Babe Ruth,
Heard of him.
Lou
Heard of
Gehrig,
him.
Joe
Heard of
DiMaggio,
him.
and they wore uniforms pretty similar in style to the one that you just saw. But although the materials have changed, the style of the uniform has really stayed the same and hasn't changed very much since the 1930s. When they're on the field, players would have worn a top like this, wool pants that would have matched, as well as long socks and cleats, just like they do today. And the name of the team is on the front while the player's number is on the back. So all of that has remained the same. From this uniform, the team is the Glens Falls Independents. They were a local baseball team, and the player's number was 3, as you saw.
Cool. All right. Whoop. I skipped ahead. Oh no, I want to. There we go. So the Glens Falls Independents were a semi-professional baseball team, and they were first organized in the year 1928. And they were organized by a man named Roland J. Roselle. And he is the man in the picture on our screen that has the red circle around his face. So he is in the team picture. There he is. And he was just 18 when he organized this team. I think that's very impressive. 18 years old. And he would go on to serve as both a player and a manager for the team, or in charge of the team, for the next 38 years. So he was very invested in the Glens Falls Independence. Now, the Independents, the team, they played their home games at Recreation Field, and they often played to crowds of over 3,000 people. So this was very popular. Everyone was going out to see the Independents play. And during the 38 years that Roland was a manager, over 400 players wore the Independents uniform. Pretty impressive.
Now, this particular uniform was donated to the museum in 2004 in memory of Ralph Lefty Story and Roscoe Story, and both of whom also they would have played for the Independents.
Cool. Now, Glenn, you ready for some fun facts?
Lay it on me.
All right. So, one interesting piece of information we found when we were doing research for this episode is that night baseball games, you being a bat might appreciate this, started to become popular during the Great Depression. So sadly, during the Depression, not many people were able to afford or able to go to baseball games because they were played during the day. And if you were fortunate enough to have a job during the Great Depression, you really couldn't leave it to go see a baseball game. Your boss probably would have looked down at you for that. So a professional team known as the Cincinnati Reds, they are still playing today, they came up with a new idea, and they decided that instead of playing games in the afternoon, they were going to push back their games till about 7 o'clock at night, and that's when they would start them. And they weren't really sure if anyone would come because it hadn't really been done anymore. But to their surprise, these night games became super popular. Lots of people started showing up to these night games because they were able to, because they had the time, they weren't at work. And they didn't have to miss work to attend the game. So night games have continued to be played today. I think when I think of baseball, I mostly think of night games. And even the Glens Falls Independents were known to play some night games. We came across some newspaper articles, you can see it on the screen, where they have a particularly busy weekend in 1937. They are playing a night game on Thursday night and then again on Friday night. So they were very busy that weekend. All right, well, I'm going to unshare our screen again. There we go. So, anybody have any questions about the baseball uniform or the Great Depression or sports at that time? We do our best to answer them. Glenn, any questions?
I don't think so.
Don't think so? All right. Well, I guess that's good.
All racked in the brain up here.
Yeah, thinking.
We must have covered everything then.
Yes, we did. guess that means we're good. All right. Well, that was our final object for today. I want to thank everyone who joined us this afternoon. We hope you had fun. We hoped you maybe learned a thing or two about sports in the past. Glenn, did you have fun?
Say this episode was a home run.
So staying up was worth it.
I like to think so.
I like to think so. We are glad to hear that, Glenn. And of course, we have to thank Maureen for sharing some more interesting objects from our collection.
You're welcome.
All right. And I'm going to share our screen one more time just to give you our final slide. There we go. All right. So, as always, we like to end each episode by telling you that it is your turn. So, now that you have learned about some of the objects in the Chapman Museum's collection, it's time for you to get creative. So, what we want you to create a piece of art that will incorporate one of the objects we learned about today. You can draw a picture, you can write a story, you can come up with a song, a poem, or something else. And you can send your artwork to me at educator@chapmanmuseum.org, and you just might see it on our social media pages. Now, this is our last live episode. Sad, I know. Yes. But that doesn't mean From the Collection is going anywhere. We're going to have another episode in September. It won't be live, but you'll be able to check it out on our YouTube channel. And we plan to have Catherine the Mouse visiting us. So that'll be fun. Nice to see Catherine again.
Always good to see
Yeah,
Catherine.
of course. All right. So until then, have a great day. Keep on learning and make sure to visit us here at the museum. We have tons of cool stuff.